2 years ago, if you'd said to me, do you think you'll ever write a book, Robert? I would have said, no way in the world. But then I discovered this uncle of mine that I didn't know I had, the brother of my aunt, half-aunt Mill, who I did know. She'd never talked about him, but I discovered him through a bit of ancestor research, and he turned out to be such an interesting person. The more I discovered about him, that I thought, someone's got to write a book. And up to that time, I thought that if you have to write a book, you have to kind of write the whole thing out in a planful way, you know, chapter by chapter, to some writing strategy, if you like. But it turns out I couldn't do that. And the more I discovered about my uncle through further research, the less it seemed possible to go about it that way. And I think probably I tried 5 times writing the book until I found a way that worked, which is what's working for me right now and got me so excited. The other thing about writing a book for me was, however will I write enough? I thought, wow, after I'd made several attempts at writing the book, I'd get a couple of chapters into it and I'd run out of puff. But eventually I did find a strategy that worked. And now, 2 hours a day I'm writing, 2 hours a day I'm editing what I did the day before, and it's turning out okay. Well, the first bit about him that's really amazing is that when he was 11 years of age, somehow or other he left home in Adelaide in South Australia and travelled over to Fremantle at the time when the gold rush in Western Australia, which absolutely transformed the West Australian economy, when the economy in the rest of Australia was going downhill fast. He started out there in the goldfields and had all sorts of adventures, which I've since discovered about. But the mystery was, how would an 11-year-old young fellow appear out of the blue in Fremantle, Western Australia, at such a young age? I mean, it is an astonishing fact. In fact, in a letter that I've discovered his son wrote many years later, that was the main thing that his son said about his father, that at age 11 he was all alone in Fremantle. But of course in the goldfields there were all sorts, at the end of the 19th century, there were all sorts of interesting things going on. Camels being unloaded from Afghanistan. Who would have thought 100 years later that camels would be a plague in the wilds of Western Australia? Who would have thought that one of the engineers that he met in the mining area turned out in 1929 to have been inaugurated as the President of the United States? I'm talking about Herbert Hoover. When he was 24, he left Australia and came to America and got into the headlines in Missouri, in Columbia, Missouri, because he claimed to have travelled 20,000 miles expressly to study at the university. There are many things about him that are just intriguing and mysterious. For instance, he ran away from his first wife and family, and then later eventually settled down and lived in Canada most of his life, which is where we're recording this right now, as a matter of fact. We're near the city of Vancouver, and in 1948, he actually died in this city. He was an ordinary man, a gifted man, who came under stress and became badly depressed at certain times in his life. And from my experience in mental health and my experience in criminal psychology, it was very clear to me that ordinary people can do really abhorrent and terrible things. So the novel is turning out, in a way, to normalise a person who, at first sight, seemed to be somewhat of a scalawag and an outrageous rogue, if you like. I've actually discovered living relatives who were very interested in who their great-grandfather was like. And so in a way I'm writing the book for them and for myself and probably for my own family. However, my recently discovered great niece thinks that maybe it will become a best-selling novel one day.